welcome. It's Chris Petrie. Thanks so much for coming by. Just wanted to do a quick technical video on my working surfaces, masonite board, 1/8 inch masonite board, and 1/2 inch foam board. Those are my two go-to working surfaces as a watercolor artist. I want you to learn all about it, see how I purchase it, how I kind of work with it to get it to kind of function with what I do. So the video is coming up in just a second. Thank you for coming by. If it's your first time here, thank you so much. You're at the right place at the right time. This is just a technical video we're going to go over on some of the things you can kind of do as a watercolor artist to kind of get your gear set up and your technical setup done so that it makes your life easier as a watercolor artist. Because we always know as watercolor artists, we need to kind of gain an advantage when we're working in watercolor so that we can actually work comfortably and efficiently. And that's what this video is about. It's a technical video, a little bit offbeat from what we normally do, but if you subscribe below, you won't lose track of me. On the right-hand side, there's a subscribe button if you're just kind of stopping by for the first time. We do tons of watercolor videos each week, month after month, and year after year here on my channel. But this is, again, a fun technical video, and I think many of you are really going to enjoy this, especially if you've been following me for a while. You'll kind of see an insight into how I work and some of the real tools of the trade that we use here and the supplies that we use to get really good results with our watercolor, okay? All right, so let's get right to the video. All right, welcome everyone. It's Chris Petrie. Thanks so much for coming by. So on this video, I just wanted to make a quick kind of look at my artist boards that I use, that I work on, whether it's my YouTube videos. Also, maybe I'll discuss a little bit of my outdoor painting. I've kind of, and also my studio painting. So I use many different styles of watercolor boards, like with working. Sometimes I work with an easel. Sometimes I work on a table. When I do my videos, I stand up and I work at like a taller table, almost like a high countertop. I'm a kitchen countertop. Like that's about how high my table is that I create my videos on, about a kitchen countertop height approximately. And so I'll just kind of go over a few different things. You can kind of watch along, see if things make sense to you. You're going to kind of probably think about how you're using your watercolor techniques with your boards and how you use your sketch pads and your watercolor paper, and when you draw, when you paint, when you follow along with videos, where you're working. Do you have a workstation at home? Do you sit in a chair when you watch the videos with like a laptop, and maybe you have a stack tray, or maybe you work at your kitchen table, or you have a desk, like a work desk or something, or a work table. I know all of you are different. You all kind of have your own way of actually working is with your watercolor paper, your pads, your paints. But I'll kind of just show you a few things that I do, and this way you kind of have an insight as to how I'm working and kind of what I'm doing, and I'll explain a little more detail on it, because I get comments, I would say occasionally, even more than kind of frequently, I get questions in the comment section about this kind of thing. So let me kind of just explain some things here. So the first thing is, I've always, for many, many years, I've used masonite board, which is this board right here. It's a very, very strong composite wood board that actually many oil painters paint on masonite board, because it has one side that's very, very extremely smooth finish, and then on the back of it, it's actually a rough finish. You can kind of see it here a little bit. It's a rough finish though on the back side, and I have some. I'll talk about this in a second, but let's go back over to this here. So this is the top of the watercolor board. It's called masonite board, and then if we were to lift this off here, this is it's called 1/8 inch masonite board, but its technical term for this is masonite. You can get this in any major big box store like Lowe's, Home Depot. Local lumber and hardware stores have this product, and it's 1/8 inch thick. So if you can imagine, if we were to spin this around here, it's 1/8 inch thick like this. So if you were to take a ruler and just, put a ruler along this here, along this top, it's actually 1/8 of an inch thick. Really exact 1/8 inch thick. And this is the real perfect size you want. I'm sorry if I kind of like this here, but you can kind of see. Maybe I'll use a metal. This sometimes is, you can see this a little better. Apologize for the little bit of the noise here. So let's just take a look here. So you can kind of see how that's 1/8 of an inch right there. So it's two of those hash marks right there, which are 1/16 of an inch. So that's 2/16 of an inch, and that actually winds up being 1/8 of an inch. So 1/8 an inch thick. And again, now you have these boards in the big box stores, your local lumber companies have this. I would say this, if you're a watercolor artist, you're just starting out, or whether you've been doing it for a couple years, or maybe you're a seasoned pro, a grizzled pro, and you're always looking for new kind of setups to use and maybe update your watercolor process and your techniques and so forth with what kind of materials and equipment you use, then this is fine. You can kind of follow along with this, and I'll get more into detail as we go here. So again, the 1/8 inch masonite board, again, you can get them at the big box stores, and what's great is you can go right to the big box store, and so what you can do is you can kind of, before you go to the lumber or hardware store or the big box store like the Lowe's, Home Depot, you can kind of figure out in your mind what size board you'd like to have these trimmed into, because you can have, the big box stores have those big saws in the lumber departments, and they can cut you the sizes you need, exact sizes you need. So you might say, oh, you know what, I usually mostly do like 8 by 10. That's my size I use most for paper. So if that's your paper size, you might make your board like a couple inches around, so 10 inches by like 12 inches. So you could just add a couple, inches on so that you have some space around it like this here, so that you can put some tape around your border of your paper. So that's really as simple as that. Does that make sense? So like if your paper size is 8 by 10, is you're mostly you're used to working in an 8 by 10 format. Maybe some of you are working in 12 by 16 or 18 by 24, whatever it is, whatever the size you want. And you can get them, this masonite board is not that expensive, so you can actually get multiple sizes cut and trimmed up perfectly. And so you buy a whole sheet, and then you have three or four or five different size boards cut for you, so that you have them all ready to go, so that whatever size painting you're going to do, you'll have the board for that size. So you might figure out, oh, I do an 8 by 10 a lot, and I do an 18 by 24 a lot as far as my paper size. So what you would do is you would bring a piece of paper to the big box store, and you can give this to the guy that's in the lumber department and say, the guy or gal that's in the lumber department working, you can say, oh, I'd like to, can you get me a sheet of 1/8 inch masonite board, and I'd like you to cut them in these sizes. So if you know you're going to be using 8 by 10 paper, you want to go like 10. So your board's going to want to be an inch this way and an inch this way, bigger. So you would tell them, I want a 10 by 12 inch piece cut from the masonite board. And then you might say, oh, I'm doing an 18 by 24, so let me get this one like maybe, let's go with 20 by 26. And that'll give you a large enough piece that your watercolor paper is going to be like this. And you'll have that room, extra room on your masonite board that you can put your tape on there. So you can tape down or tape all the way around, however you like to do that. But does that make sense? You get your boards cut at the local hardware and lumber store, wherever you might be. I'm not sure if you have the big box stores or whether you have smaller lumber and hardware companies, but they're all happy to help you to get your boards cut just the way you need them. And if you buy a whole sheet of masonite, which is 4 foot by 8 foot, then you can get multiple pieces cut. So you could just tell them, cut me as many as you can with 10 by 12 and 20 by 26. And then maybe you might want to figure a few other sizes. So all you have to do basically is you buy a whole sheet of masonite board, which is 4 feet by 8 feet, like this. So it's 4 feet tall, like that, and then it's 8 feet wide. So then all you have to do is take some paper like I'm doing right here, and then just figure out your different sizes you want. You can just draw it out on the paper and say, okay, if that's 4 feet, maybe I can get a 2-foot board here and a 2-foot board here by a 3-foot board here. So 2 foot by, and then you could say, well, this is 4 feet this way. So you can go 2 by 2, 2 foot by 2 foot maybe. And then you can make other boards here, and you can kind of plan out what size board you want, and then as many as you can fit into that 4 by 8 inch sheet of 1/8 inch masonite board. Then you can just hand them this piece of paper that you have with the sizes you want to have cut, and they'll just take the saw and they'll just start trimming down all the pieces you need, and they'll cut them exactly to the sizes you want. So you just have to figure out what sizes you want to have cut for you, and then just figure out how many you can get out of a sheet, a full 4 foot by 8 foot sheet of plywood. So it's a little bit of math, a little bit of, if you're not great with math or you're not good with these type of things, you can have somebody in your family, maybe that that can kind of help you with this, or, it's kind of a little bit of some math here and kind of planning some things out, but it shouldn't be too difficult for most all of you. I know you're probably all familiar with this type of, planning out something like this with the sizes of dimensions and things like that. Comes easy for me. But from being in construction my whole life, I'm just used to working with rulers all the time, and dimensions and rulers and drawings and sketches and things like that. But that's kind of like the basics of it. So you can get your beautiful boards cut to whatever sizes you want, very simply. And if you need help, you can ask someone in your family to give you a hand with the project. Maybe you need a hand going to the store and finding somebody and all that, and whatever else. But you can either get some help, or if you don't need it, and you can just go right to the store and get yourself your 1/8 inch masonite, hand off the paper to the gentleman or the woman that's there working in the lumber department there in the store, and they'll trim everything up perfect for you. And then you have this, and you can just bring them home. And then what I like to do is, you can kind of see here, I always mention, like a lot of times I mention, I buy this kind of like, it's a lot of times called like carpet traction roll, or they call it sometimes drawer liner cabinet, like mechanics drawer liner. But you can kind of see they have this a lot of times in the I think they have this in also the big box stores have this in like the carpet section. So in the carpet section you would find this type of spongy, grippy material. What I do is I like to take this, cut a small piece, put it on the back of my masonite board, and then I use gaff tape. Gaff tape is basically a very, very extremely strong tape with a lot of sticking power. So what I do is I take my gaff tape and I trim it, and I go right around the whole exterior like this, around the whole back of the board with that traction-y, rubbery type roll that you can buy, and that gives it really good grip, so that when you lay it on a table or on your lap or anywhere that you're working, it doesn't move around. It sticks. It doesn't slide around. So you wouldn't want to be working on something that's moving around when you're going to paint and think, that would really cause havoc when you're trying to draw and paint. So that's why I'm always using this tacky material taped with gaff tape, Gaff, gaff tape on the back. And this way you always have your working board is always nice and solid, and it's not moving around on you at all. And that's how I do it. And this is how I work on my YouTube videos. I have a large sheet of masonite, but what I do is I tape on top of this masonite, I tape down a sheet of paper so that it's like a white piece of construction paper, and then I work on top of that with my actual watercolor paper. But this is what I actually use for my tabletop. And the next thing I would say is I always have a little bit of pitch on my watercolor board. So I usually use a 2x4. So I use a 2x4, and I wrap my 2x4. Let's say this is a 2x4 right here. I take my 2x4, and then I just tape around my 2x4 this drawer liner, soft, cushiony drawer liner. It's got that grip to it. Carpet, they use it for putting underneath throw rugs and things you can buy. It's always in the carpet section wherever you go, in the hardware stores and lumber companies and all the big box stores. So you use this, and then you tape it, you cut it, and you tape it. So then you can imagine you have a 2x4 underneath your masonite board like this. And this way you have a little bit of pitch on your board. So this way when you're working and you're doing your washes, the watercolor paint will flow down just a little bit. So you don't want it too steep where then when you put the water on the watercolor paper, it's just like whoosh. You want to have just a tiny little bit of pitch on your board when you're working, and that'll work out fantastic. So again, a 2x4 works great. You put the 2x4 at the top of your board on a table, and then I would even use more of this traction underneath the whole entire. I'd buy a large roll of this traction fabric and I'd put it over the whole table. Let's say it's a kitchen table you have or whatever it is. You put that down first, then you put your 2x4 on like that, and then you put your board on top of that. And this way everything is rock solid. It won't slide around. You can kind of see I can't really hardly move it at all. Perfect. And then you're all set. You're ready to go. You have a perfect working table surface. And again, you can put tape on this hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, thousands of times. You can tape down watercolor paper and lift up your tape, and you're not going to damage. This masonite is very, very durable. So you're going to have years and years and years of great use out of your masonite board. So you can just keep putting taping all your. You could take all of this. You can, like I said, you can probably these last 10 years, you can probably have 10 years of taping your watercolor paper down onto your masonite board and lifting up when you're done working, and you'll have, again, almost like a, once you have these boards made, I don't think you probably would need to probably have them cut and made again. It'll just be a one-time process. You get these cut and made to size the way you need them. Maybe in the future you might want some larger ones or something like that if you want to work larger with your watercolors. But let's take a quick break. So we kind of covered the masonite board. You saw it's 1/8 inch thick. So it's kind of thin, but it's super rigid. See how you can't even bend it. It's so strong. It's very, very strong. It's a particle board, basically, a composite board. You can barely bend it, so it's super strong. So when you set it on a table and you prop it up with something, it's not going to bend and bow or anything like that. It stays extremely rigid and strong. And that's what I use all the time, and I've been using this for as long as I can remember. When I've been working with watercolor, I've always used masonite board. Okay, so that's the masonite board. Let's take a quick break, and I'll come back and I'll describe foam board next. I use that as well. Foam board's a fantastic alternative to or in addition to masonite. You can use some great foam board. I'm going to show you how you can do that. You can set it all up. You can use it in many applications. So I'm really giving a quick demo on my working boards, my working surfaces with my watercolor setup, and I'm hoping you're enjoying this so far. And I always mention too, if you haven't subscribed and this is your first time here, please subscribe on the right hand side below. This way you don't miss out on any information that I'm kind of bringing along, tidbits of information like this here. So these videos I make every once in a while, we'll do a technical type video like this where we kind of go over some interesting offbeat type stuff with watercolor, but it's very important too. Even though we're not creating a painting on this video, this is valuable, incredibly valuable information, because you might be kind of working in a odd type of way and you don't realize it. And then you say, oh my gosh, why didn't I think of this? This is a great idea. I'm going to, work on a masonite board from now on. And you'll go out and try it and you'll just see, wow, this is a phenomenal working surface for watercolor artists. I think if once you work with masonite, I think you'll always keep this in your arsenal of your supplies that you have for watercolor. And you can even use this for any application if you're doing acrylics or oils even. Okay, so I'll be right back. We're going to cover foam board next. All right, so we're going to keep working here, and the next thing we're going to cover is foam board. This is a great working surface for watercolor artists. I do use foam board a lot too as well. Actually, I use foam board for my watercolor easels. I use basically I have a wooden French easel that I use occasionally at home in my home studio. But when I go outdoors and I'm painting, I usually use it's actually a camera tripod. They're called Velbon is the brand name, Velbon tripods. They make a lot of great camera tripods. They work for video cameras and regular standard photography cameras, and you could use them for your art too. You can set them up, and they're really light. And I'll go with, eventually we'll do another video on outdoor gear, a little more using setups outdoors with easels and things like that. I'll cover that in a near upcoming video soon. But this is basically just covering like the foam board you can use. You can use foam board instead of masonite if you want. Foam board, again, you can order this online. You probably can order masonite board online too. I forgot to mention that. You can probably go on the internet and order masonite boards at different sizes. They probably have them, actually. I know they make them too with like clipboards. They make large clipboards that are like maybe, pretty large size clipboards that are actually almost the same as masonite. Very, very strong, very, very durable wood composite boards that would work fine for watercolor. So you don't necessarily have to go out and figure out all the the sizes of the boards. You know how we were covering this just a few minutes ago, kind of like a shortcut to this. If you wanted to, you can always, let me see if I have something. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to run across the other side of my studio. And voila, here we go. These are these large clipboards you can get. I bought this at my local art store, but they have like the little handle on it like this, and the clipboard like this. And this happens to be, let's take a look here, and we'll use our ruler. We'll figure out how this is actually, let's take a look here. This is 14 by 18. So this is a 14 by 18, pretty much a masonite board. This is pretty much exactly like a masonite, very hard board. It's 1/8 inch thick too as well. You can kind of see that right there. That's about exactly 1/8 of an inch thick right there. So this is just a little more polished version of a masonite board that you might pick up at a lumber and hardware store, big box store, etc., etc. And so, again, so that might save you a little bit of time. It might be a little bit more inexpensive to buy masonite board and have someone, trim it down at the local, big box store. But you could also do this. You could purchase one of these boards here. And I don't know who makes this, but I did get this at my local Blick's store, art store down the road from the highway from where I live. So that's another option you have there too. And this is very rigid. You can't barely budge this. It does not even bow or bend hardly at all. So you could set up a 2x4 underneath this too. You can set up a 2x4 underneath this and get the pitch you need. If you're on a table, like a flat table, like a kitchen table, you could take your 2x4 like that, like this, and put it underneath the front of the board like that. And there you go. You got a perfect working surface. You can tape your watercolor paper right on this and get years and years and years and many years of working surface with this. Great alternative to the going to the store and having custom cut boards, but the custom cut boards will work great if you want to have exactly the sizes you need. Okay, so now we're talking the foam board though, and this is another very, very strong foam board. If you see this, you can't even budge this either. This is like almost like wood. This is almost the same thing as buying a board of wood. Look, it doesn't bow, it doesn't bend. Incredibly rigid and strong, and it's actually about a 1/2 inch thick. Let's just double check here on the width of this. So this is a 1/2 inch thick. So I'm looking at my ruler here, and you can kind of see that's a 1/2 inch thick. So this is 1/2 inch foam board. You can pick this up local art stores. You can order this online. Probably very inexpensive to have it shipped because it's so light. And another alternative. And then what you can do is we'll just pretend that you buy a piece of foam board, and maybe you buy, like, I don't know, maybe you're going to buy a 2 foot by 4 foot piece of foam board in the mail. It gets delivered to your house, and you're now going to try to see if you can work with that. So you get a 2 foot by 4 foot piece of foam board like this. It's a 1/2 inch thick, and you're going to create a couple boards with it so you can use it at home. So let's pretend again this is the foam board here. We'll tape this down. So the next thing you would do is just trim it into pieces. So you would just figure out what size pieces do you want. If you have, let's say this is 2 foot here and 4 foot here. You might say, I think I'm going to go with, I'm just going to go right in the middle and say, so I'll just pretend we're going to measure. I'm going to say, okay, let's go with 4 1/4 inches there. I come over here and I do 4 1/4 inches there. Mark out your exact line, so you got a straight line across here, like that. With pencil, you would do this light pencil line. You go across like that, and then you do the same thing this way. We'll go halfway, so 11, half of 11 is 5.5 inches. Come down here, measure 5.5 inches there. Take your ruler, go across with a pencil, light pencil line, like that. I'm using marker because I want you to see it really clearly on video here. And then, so then you have 4 sheets, or 4 sheets of foam board. Beautiful 1/2 inch foam board. And then you can make them any size you want. I'm just pretending that I'm creating some 12 inch by 24 inch pieces here. 24 inch and then 12 inch by 24 inch, and the same down here. 12 inch by 24 inch, 12 inch by 24 inch. Now you have, or you could say like this one here, let's make this one 2 feet this way, 2 feet. So how would that would be, 2 feet this way and 2 feet this way. So you can make a 2 by 2 here, and then 2 1 by 2s here, like that. So you have a larger foam board here and 2 smaller ones there, and that's as simple as that. You just trim them down like that, and then you'll have basically 2 gorgeous, perfect foam boards for yourself. You can use for working surfaces, and you could use them just the same as you use masonite board. They're a little bit lighter too. So if you want to travel with them to go do some outdoor painting somewhere, and you trim them down, you probably wouldn't use scissors for foam board. You have to use something else, but that's basically, then you'd have 3 pieces of foam board like that if you ordered it or you picked it up at the store. And that's how you would work with your foam board. You get your pieces cut, as many, and they make big sheets of foam board. My local art store, they have really large sheets, like 4 feet by 8 feet tall. So I could purchase any size foam board basically, and get really super large sizes, or make like sizes like this too, like this here. And you can, again, this works great. You can tape your watercolor paper right down on this here. And if you're using really good artist tape, you can do that. And when you're done, it lifts right off the foam board like that. If you're using really good drafting tape or artist tape, doesn't have too much tack to it. So that is another fantastic way to have a nice, and again, it's very rigid. Look how rigid that is. You can't even bend it. I'm trying to bend it. You can't even bend it. It's like wood. So this foam board, again, fantastic to use. And so that's pretty much covering 2 types of working board surfaces that you can use that are really excellent. And then if you want to, I wanted to just mention, if you do the foam board route, sometimes you'll get a little bit of a rough edge when you're done trimming your foam board. A great thing to do is you can use either duct tape. I forgot to mention that before too. You can use duct tape on the back of your masonite board, or you can use the gaff tape. So either gaff tape, G-A-F-F, gaff tape, or you can use really good, this is 3M duct tape, white duct tape. You can use this, and what you can do is you can take this, and I'll just do a small demo here of, you could take your tape like this, and you can measure it perfectly. And then for all the edges of your foam board, you can go around with your duct tape. And you would just cut the piece perfectly to the length of this here. And pretend this piece is all the way across. I'm just going to go this much. Just like that. Just like that. And then fold it around the back like this. And then now you have a beautifully sealed, nice smooth edge for your, like that, for your foam board. So you can kind of smooth out the edges by using some really good 3M duct tape, or you can use any duct tape. I like the white duct tape, it looks a little better. And you can use that, or you can use maybe some really good, I would say you might be able to use some really good masking tape, some strong masking tape. They make some really good strong masking tape where you could use that too. I think I have some Scotch masking tape. You could probably use this too. Let's try a little bit of this and see how this works. So again, you would do the same thing. You would measure. So you would take your measurement and say, okay, how long is this here? Maybe we'll spin around the other side here. We'll spin around this other side here. So we'd say, all right, how long do we need to trim our tape? So we would say, all right, let's measure it this way and say, okay, we need 7 inches of tape. So then you would take your tape measure here, and you would take your tape and make it a little longer. Make your tape a little longer and trim it off, like so. And then you just take your tape, as long as you could do this too. Same thing, like that. Then you would trim off the edges like this, like that. And then trim off the other side like so, like that. And you would go around the whole outside of your foam board just like this. And then you would just, smooth it out like that. So you can kind of see I'm smoothing this out. And this would just clean up the edge of your foam board once you're done trimming it. And then you just fold it right down the back of the foam board like so. Like that. And it gives you a nice durable edge to your foam board. And there you have it. And again, I'm going to cover my easels because I use a foam board with my outdoor easel setup. And I use my masonite mostly for my YouTube videos on my table, and also I sometimes use it indoors in my lap. I have a piece of masonite board, large masonite board with some of that tacky carpet liner or drawer liner, the drawer liner we were talking about before. That's nice and tractiony. You can also put that on. I would put that on the back of your board as well too, your foam board. So if you're going to use your foam board and you want to make it so that you can set it on a table and it's not going to slide all around, you take some of that traction roll. I guess it comes in rolls. You can drawer liner. They call it drawer liner, carpet roll, which goes underneath your throw rugs. So if you have a throw rug and you don't want it sliding around, you put that under your throw rug. So you always find this stuff again in the carpet section of your lumber and hardware stores, your big box stores. And again, let's do I have some gaff tape. It's 1-inch gaff tape. And I just go right across like this. And then tape this down like that. And then I just take this and trim this like that. And that's one. And I press it down really good on the traction roll. And the same thing here. I come across here. I get it down, then I kind of make sure I kind of snug it like that. Then I do the same thing. I just take the scissors and I trim it. So there you have 2 sides like that, nice and tight and good. Make it good and firm and get it on there. Press it down real good. And then you just do your last 2 sides here. And I just again trim it with the scissors. Just like that. And then one more turn like this, and we'll just get it nice and lined up correctly, and then there we go. Press it down really good all the way around. And there you have it. You have your foam board. You can set it down on a table. It won't move around. See how it doesn't move around? It's kind of glued to the surface. It's perfect. And this way, if you're drawing or you're painting, your board's not going to be sliding around like this. It's going to be nice and locked in, nice and good, like that. So you can draw and paint, just like this. All right, I hope you found this helpful. These are my two main working surfaces that I really enjoy using for watercolor. I hope you'll kind of work on this. Maybe in the next couple months or so, or the next year, you'll kind of start transitioning some of your working setups to some of these also too. Maybe you have these in your arsenal as well. So this way you have multiple options for yourself and you try them all. That's what I always say as watercolor artists, try your different options with things. If it makes sense, do it. If you have a good setup now and it's working great for you, you don't really need to go this route at all. This is just like an informative type of video I like to make to kind of share with everybody how I have, my things set up, my working tables and my easels and things. And again, I'll show my easels very soon. I'll work on putting together a good tutorial on my outdoor easel, what the parts are of it. It's really basically a camera or video camera tripod with a foam board setup on top of it, and I'll show you how you can actually make one. They're very kind of simple to make, actually, not too difficult. And if you can't do it yourself, you have somebody in your family that's good with, like, handyman work, and maybe someone that's like a construction worker, or someone that's like an engineer or an architect. People like that in the construction industry usually have a really good feel for working on things with their hands, figuring out how to put things together. So if you don't have a easy time doing these type of projects, you have somebody in your family, I'm sure, somewhere along, whether it's your someone that you might be a cousin, a friend, maybe a nephew, a niece, somebody. Chances are you're going to have somebody that's going to be familiar with doing some handyman work, and you'll just get them to do it. You explain to them, you say, hey, watch this video by this guy, Chris Petrie. He explains how he does all this stuff here. Can you make me a couple of these boards? Can you make me a couple of those masonite boards? Maybe you give somebody like $20 or $30 or $40, and you say, hey, maybe it's someone in your family. You say, if I give you $40, can you go out and get some masonite boards trimmed for me at the local hardware store or whatever? You have them do it. Always remember, you always have that opportunity to have other people help you with your art and getting some of these things done. I know sometimes it's overwhelming. Sometimes we need to ask for help with getting some projects done here and there occasionally. So don't be afraid to, again, have somebody in your family give you a hand and help you with getting some of these type projects done. If you think it's going to help and make your art better, that's the main thing. If your art's going to be improved by creating either a foam board or a masonite board, and you don't have any right now, it's not that expensive, and again, you can have somebody help you do it as well, and that'll be really as simple as that. It's just a little bit of patience and forethought, and a little bit of planning, and you can get it done. So don't worry. Have a great time with watercolor. Have a great time using some of the fantastic supplies that we have available to us as artists to enhance your experience of your watercolor journey. So this way things are more fun, easier, and you're kind of more comfortable when you're working with your art, because that's a really big part of it. If you have really a difficult time with your setup, it could be really affecting your quality of your artwork. You might be kind of struggling because there's some kind of like problematic things in your way you're working. So I've kind of showed you a lot of things that I do all the time, and they've really helped me, and I'm hoping they're going to help you and take your art to the next level. And always, again, please subscribe if you haven't subscribed. This way you get all the information that we have on my videos each week. We're working, week after week, month after month, and year after year for you. And this is just a small tidbit of the information we cover here. We're mostly always doing paintings, and we do everything: landscapes, seascapes, boat paintings. We do figure painting. We do portrait painting. We do flowers. We do everything watercolor. And again, we do some of these kind of offbeat type technical videos that we have on my channel, just so I can share with you some of the things that I'm doing. And I'm hoping you appreciate these. Let me know in the comments section if you have questions about any of this type of things that we've covered on this. I'm happy to answer any and all of your questions that you have regarding this type of a video here. And we'll see you soon on the next video. And again, thanks so much for coming by. I'm so happy everybody is on the watercolor journey. You're enjoying painting and watercolor. It's one of the best mediums. I think it is the best medium, actually. And it's fun. You can take it anywhere you want to go with it, and it's not messy really so much. So it's a great medium, and it looks beautiful too, doesn't it? Okay, so we'll see you soon.